My favorite director, like Satoshi Kon, had this movie that he was making called The Dream Machine, and he died before he could make it. And just like that shouldn't have happened. If someone that I love was in that position, like I would do anything that I could to give them the time that they wanted to finish things that they cared about. For transplant patients, like you just literally uncertain when the surgery is going to be scheduled for months, maybe up to over a year. So if you miss the call, for the organ, then you go back on the waiting list, right? It's like a decade ago, actually right over there, UCSF Mission Bay.
Oh, yeah.
Like you couldn't say the word age. It was like so much taboo. Longevity was like, us making a word that was like less controversial. You should like take some time between like your philosophical decisions that you made like in your 20s or 30s.
Yeah.
Possibly life or death like decisions.
Hi everyone, we're in San Francisco and it's windy. And I'm about to talk to Laura Deming, the co-founder of Until, a cryopreservation company. And it sounds as wild as it is. Freeze yourself so you can wake up somewhere down the line in the future. Laura is a fascinating mind with fascinating ideas, and we talk about beauty, how she finds math and biology beautiful, her upbringing, Until where the company is at right now and its vision, and so much more. And I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I did. Let's get to it. Laura, thank you so much for taking the time. Really excited to chat. So one of the things that I read, I believe on your website, is that you don't know who you are and you don't know how you came here to this earth. Who are you?
I love science.
Yeah, great hat.
That's pretty consistent. Yeah.
Okay.
I love science. I love working with the people that I work with. I don't know. That's probably. I think math is very cool as well. If that's separate from science. Yeah, those things are pretty consistent.
But it's interesting that you are describing yourself through verbs, like I love X and I love Y, versus describing your identity.
I guess that just feels the most consistent thing, like, yeah.
Through your life.
Yeah.
Has everything else changed significantly?
Change in surprising ways would be hard to predict. I think, like, who I would be now, or like, things that I used to assume, wouldn't change, did change, so.
Oh, interesting. Wait, tell me more. What are the things that you assumed wouldn't change that changed?
I think probably a lot more friendly now than I used to be.
Interesting. Okay, I didn't know you before, so that's very cool. I assume that was a positive change.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I feel like a lot of it is just how you change in your like teens to your 20s to your 30s, right? Where like, I think it's just hard to be as aware of other people when you're younger, like kind of like very inward focused, and I think that changes as you get older. So I don't know.
What do you feel like has been the biggest change in the last 1 to 3 years?
1 to 3 years. I think probably putting down roots. Like, it's funny. I have a lot of friends where like it's very common for them to be like, oh, I've never lived in one place for more than a year or something. Like learning how to have strength from being in one place and having roots in one place.
Is that something that you didn't think you would do when you were younger, like rooting in one place?
Yeah, I think I used to think it was just crazy to like live in one place, like the idea of like being in one place for a long time just seemed insane to me. Like, oh, you should always be like, trying to move to the next place.
And how long have you been in San Francisco now?
I've been in San Francisco for a long time, like over a decade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I've been in the city, but I'd say like I always had a lot of flexibility for like, where I was.
And now would you say that you're changing your mindset to being rooted versus always having this flexible mindset? What's flexibility because you wanted to be in the state of optionality? And
maybe. I'm not sure. Yeah.
What changed?
I think I just looked around and saw that a lot of people that I respect, I get a lot of strength from I think this idea of like strength from constraint or like strength from like commitment or strength from like just deepening your roots. And I think I was so far on the opposite side that it was like, oh, how can I go more in that direction? Yeah.
Yeah. Someone once told me that commitment is the ultimate freedom.
Yeah. I think like, I don't know if that's completely true, but it's kind of like how true could that be? Yeah.
What do you mean by how true could that be?
Um, Presumably there's some point past which.
Past which that you become too constrained.
Yeah.
Okay, that's totally fair. So I want to jump into your upbringing and your background. So it's a story that was told many times that you were a child prodigy. You got interested in longevity when you were 8 years old, and then you went to work with Cynthia Kenyon when you were 12. And something that I read is that you describe your childhood and upbringing as without rules, and you were feral.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious, did it cost you anything? Like the fact that there was unbound freedom when you were growing up? Did it show up in negative ways later on?
Probably. I mean, to be clear, like I couldn't like, break stuff in our house without retribution or like, there wasn't like.
This is like total unbound freedom, yeah.
It wasn't like total anarchy, but it was like, I was just at our house all day and we would have lessons sometimes, but like could really just set my own schedule, like kind of do whatever. And like I never realized until later that like other kids were going to a building with a lot of other kids and like being told, you were like just the idea of a classroom, like or the idea of school. Like it was just something I saw like sometimes from the outside through a gate. It wasn't like I'd ever experienced it personally. My sense of what's normal is deeply different from that experience. And it's funny, it's changed over time to become like more aware of what most people would say normal is, but like it just the normal is quite different. But I think the downside is that like, you don't know what everyone else thinks of as normal. And so it's like often a lot of like effort to try and reconstruct like, okay, like why do most people think this way? Like what's going on? That's also, it's funny, like, my job is kind of, I think a lot of that, like trying to understand like, why do we have these norms? Like what norms make sense? What norms are outdated? Like why, so helpful in that sense too.
What norm have you been grasping with most recently? Just deconstructing.
I think identity, or like basically when we talk about the person that dies, like who, like what is the thing that we think is important to preserve? Is like I'm obsessed with this question. I think it's phrased in a way that like most people wouldn't relate to, but like it's like most people want to preserve something of themselves through time, but like how does continuity of experience relate to that? How does continuity of like physical continuity relate to that? How does causality relate to that? I don't know. I think it's like an interesting space where it's like both like there's some logical questions of like what is consistent with what other point of view, but also I think there's a lot of like intuitions. Trying to figure out where those interact is interesting.
So tell me more about how are you thinking about it? What do you think should be preserved? How does continuity look like? Obviously, you're working on cryopreservation. That's why you're thinking, I assume, so much about this question. But how has your thinking on this matter changed?
I think I used to take it for granted that, like, there was some obvious thing that we were trying to preserve, and
what was the obvious thing before?
Just like
the human body,
whoever I am. Like, I am me. It is good for me to be alive. I should continue to be alive, for as much as possible. This is good. But I think one thing that like I kind of realized later in the game that like transhumanism I think doesn't have as much of is just like a good picture for what is the thing that's going to happen. Like what is the
like, what does it actually mean to stay alive for a really long time?
Yeah, there's a lot of very simplistic perspectives, like, like we'll just be like elves who are like very subtle and political and nuanced. I feel like there's all these kind of like very simple extrapolations out from like who we are now that people kind of imagine like 1,000-year-old person like look like a certain way. But I don't think none of those really feel correct to me. And I think that there's like this question of just like what possibilities do you have in that realm? Like the closest I've gotten is like the I think the wave off of Kanagawa, the kind of most famous picture of a wave rising, like that was done by an artist like in his late life. And he has this incredible quote where he's like, yeah, like I think I just learned to draw, basically like
wow.
At the end of my career. And when I'm 100, then maybe I'll be able to like finally paint a line, or there's some like incredible thing. And then he like died shortly thereafter. And so we even get to see the results of that. And there's something about like what like the best artist in the world could do with enough time, or kind of like how somebody could evolve with enough time that's interesting. But I feel like we just don't really have, like, it just, we don't have good intuitions for it now, yeah. But it's interesting to think about.
So how do you try to find these answers for yourself?
For me, just like, I guess being confused. Yeah. Like I don't think that it's likely that I'll have good answers, but for myself anytime soon. But I think being able to see clearly like the ways in which I'm assuming things that just actually don't make sense.
So when you say that transhumanism kind of misses a lot of the definitions and the specifics about what does it mean to stay alive for a really long time, can you be a bit more specific about what is it exactly that you think is missing in the overall narrative of being transhuman, and what are the, I don't know, the 3 things that we really need to define before we upload ourselves to the cloud or like cryopreserve ourselves and live 1,000 years?
Yeah, I think like and this is not just like my perspective. I think probably certain number of people share this. Like I think the thing that like feels like we inherited from the past and this era of philosophy is just like this kind of very linear perspective. Like transhumanism is like better. Like you just take all the things about being human and you make them all better, and that's good. That doesn't really make sense to me. I'm not interested in that so much. It doesn't quite I don't know, just it doesn't quite seem like what the technology wants to be. It's like there's something like, well, what would happen if you had all this extra time to evolve a conscious entity? Like you wouldn't keep like the shape of a like
You wouldn't keep the same.
Yeah, it would not be like the same. And I just don't know if we have. Yeah, I just feel a lot of confusion about that.
So in an ideal world, let's say you're 1,000 years old, what would be the things that you would want for yourself? What would that 1,000-year-old Laura look like or do or be?
I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe like the ability to be confused as I am
As confused
now.
as you are.
And to not need to know to not need to know that things would be a certain way, or to assume that I know like what the future looks like. That feels interesting, I think. Yeah.
So do you think that being human and most fulfilled is about embracing that uncertainty of tomorrow to the fullest extent?
I don't know what being human means. Like, I think being human is like, it can either mean like a sort of like conservative perspective, like being as similar to what's been around for a long time as possible. It can be like trying to be, I think people use it. I think it's a very political term that people use in different ways to kind of support. Like, I think being human, people are always like, being human, like not being human is, not yet good. But like people can use it to, like we've changed a lot as a species, so people use it to encompass different terms. I don't quite know what that phrase means to me.
Yeah. Do you think you were less confused or more confused 10 years ago?
Much less confused.
Interesting.
I was much less confused.
I mean, it's kind of the same thing as people are saying, the more I know, the less I know.
Yeah. That feels true.
What are the things you've gotten more confused about, and are you happy about the fact that you have more questions and less answers?
More confused about, I don't know. I mean, there's one thing which has stayed the same, which is just feeling like, okay, like, I mean, no matter where you go philosophically, it's like, if you imagine someone that you really love, they're on their deathbed, they have something that they wanted to do, like, let's say, like, they had, I don't know, just something that mattered to them. Like, or like my favorite director, like Satoshi Kon, had this movie that he was making called The Dream Machine. And he died before he could make it, from, I think, pancreatic cancer in his, like, 40s. And just, like, that shouldn't have happened. Like, okay, like, so I think consistently when you work in medicine, you kind of have to bring yourself back to, like, okay, like, we can philosophize all we want, but, like, at the core, like, if someone that I love was in that position, like, I would do anything that I could to give them, the time that they wanted to finish things that they cared about. So that feels pretty consistent. But outside of that, everything is like,
unclear.
Yeah.
Do you remember the moments when you got interested in longevity? So when you were 8, what exactly happened?
I just like, I think visualized death quite clearly. And that felt bad. Like death was not good.
Were you visualizing anything else and that was also bad, and there was like a stack rank of things that were bad, and then death was like the worst out of all?
No. Did you do that? Maybe you did that as a kid.
It's interesting because as a kid, I also visualized death quite often, and I wonder if it's like a kid thing to do, to visualize death. And obviously some kids take it very, very seriously and decide to dedicate their whole life to the question of death.
They're like, I'm not scared of death next.
I specifically remember visualizing the death of my parents and being really, really sad about it.
Yeah.
And then literally crying myself to sleep, and then I kind of grew out of it. But okay, so you were just visualizing death and you were like, not good, gotta work on this problem.
Yeah, I think I was like, this is the most important problem that I could imagine working on. Like, let's have at it. Like, it's not like it felt very, very, very obvious, I think. Yeah.
How has your relationship to death changed over the years?
Um, I think, uh, well, it's definitely changed. And I think it's like more compelling for me now to try and imagine like what are the things that you could make that you wouldn't otherwise make, or or to imagine other people dying. Yeah, I'd say it's changed.
So give me a little more there, like what specifically changed? Is it that you're less scared of death? Is it that you're more determined to solve the question of death?
I think my choice is like living a very long time would just be a different thing. Like, and we just don't really know.
What that would look like.
Yeah, and I think that you would change, like your identity, like the person who started that journey would not be the same person that
Right.
even in 100 years comes out of it. And so like, then the question is like, what do you value existing in the world? You know, additional to like, do you think it's worthwhile to have continuous consciousness just continue to exist for a long period of time? But yeah, but like I think you have to then balance like being philosophically interested in that with just kind of like, yeah, but if someone's in the hospital right now, like what can we do to help them? Like and not, yeah.
So more of a short-term question, because that's the thing that we can imagine and viscerally feel, versus thinking about what would life look like 500 years from now.
Yeah, I think right now is like, I think that we like, you know, on some level you try to kind of pick like what you take as an axiom. And I think for me, like the feeling of like, damn, like that person really should not be suffering is like one of the most compelling feelings like that you can kind of go after. And it just like that's a good enough motivation to like pick your core life thing. Yeah.
Did you have anyone really close to you dying?
When I was little, it happened a bit, but I think more so was just visiting people who were quite old and just being like visiting people who were quite old and then just being like, you know, the number of different like ways that we change as we get older that just like, you know, you can't like be as present in a conversation, or you can't pick up a fork, you know, because your fingers are too you know, for some people that I knew, just kind of I think seeing all the different ways that like their life is just so much worse in terms of like health and function. And just kind of this kid, you're just like, damn, like this is like so tough, like, you know, and like, but they're still somebody you love a lot, and they have so much to give, and they have so much love that they want to express, but it's like literally limited by like how present they can be from a like health perspective. It just feels very frustrating, and I feel like it feels very compelling to imagine giving that person like more
Time.
Or just more ease, you know.
But why is it that for you that concluded in a question of life or death versus in a question of healthful living while you are living? Because, you know, you might prolong the life of that 60, 70-year-old person who's on a deathbed, or you could make their current life a little better for a few more years so that they can live more healthfully.
I think I just never saw the distinction between the two. Like, I think people have this. What I realized later on life is like people mostly experience like prolonging life in the context of the medical system that does that in a way that is very uncomfortable. Like often like might not be preferable to the person who just like literally is like the quality of life that I have is not sufficient for me to want to continue. That just wasn't at all. It was never part of like what I was thinking about when I was a kid. It was just kind of like, yeah, you like are a lot healthier, so then you can live longer, but you can live longer because you're healthier, not because we're kind of like artificially prolonging.
Got it. That makes sense. It's like one is caused by the other and vice versa.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's definitely like the first thing is increasing quality of life, and then like the idea is that just, you know, amount of life extends downstream of that.
I read somewhere that you think that aging and longevity is not a problem of science, but it's more of a social problem. Can you speak to that a little more?
I don't remember what I was thinking when I said that, because it's definitely a lot of science questions. Well, I mean, I don't remember when I said that, but I think a lot has changed. Like it's like a decade ago, when I first started working in this field about 20 years ago, like actually right over there, you know, UCSF Mission Bay.
Oh, yeah.
It was like crazy. Like you couldn't say the word aging. It was like so much taboo. Like you couldn't say the word aging. You couldn't say the word, you know, longevity was like, you know, us making a word that was like less controversial. But that's changed a lot, and it's not totally mainstream, but I think it's just just year over year gotten to be a category of its own. You know, people kind of almost viewed as like aspirational to start a longevity company in some contexts. And so I'd say like a lot of the social problem feels updated now, but there's still kind of a gap where I'd say large pharma companies don't deploy like a lot of resources into the aging field because they haven't yet seen what they need to, which is like the first clinical trials that actually work and show that this like is an indication that you can develop drugs for that can be like successful in a population setting. I think once that's done, then I'll feel pretty
good.
Yeah, pretty good about the field getting the resources that it needs.
What's the milestone that you're rushing towards right now?
In the company, until just scaling up cryo technology. Yeah.
Tell me a bit more about how you talk about Until right now, and has the way you guys talk about it publicly or the way you think about it changed over the last few years?
Yeah, I think when we started, we had a lot of goals that we kind of viewed as hypothetical, like, scaling up to an organ context, for example, to help transplant patients. Came a bit later, and I think the biggest change is probably just feeling a lot like there's clinical indications that can really help patients that we can probably get to, fairly straightforwardly. Okay. Yeah.
So what you're saying, just to make sure that I understand, is that initially maybe you guys started with just the visionary goal and idea, and then through time and working on the project, you realized that there is much clearer milestones that can help people much sooner. So like organ preservation and helping people who are getting transplants.
Yeah, like it's very compelling. Like, I think when we started, we were like, oh, hypothetically, cryo will scale up, over time, and that'll take a long time to get there. Yeah, talking to people were like last week, hearing about an organ that's lost, literally just due to timing reasons. Like, even one that had a lot more time than a normal organ can still be dropped for logistical reasons. You're talking to people who know of like a liver surgeon who's sitting on a plane with an organ right next to him, and then the organ is like, the plane's iced out and the organ doesn't make it because of literally like a couple hour delay. It's just, and you're kind of like, yeah, we think that it's possible to reverse the cryopreserve those organs, and we want to show that. Just feels a lot more compelling to have a near-term use case as well as like the long-term.
Do you remember how you guys came to the conclusion that there is this near-term use case? Was there a discovery that you had in the lab? Was it a conversation with your team or your co-founder? Or, a lot of independent solo thinking where you were like, okay, there is actually a much clearer goal that we can execute on right now?
It's a conversation with the team. It really came from the team. It wasn't just Hunter and I that made the call. So that was pretty cool.
That's awesome. I want to bookmark talking about the company a bit more in a bit, but I want to come back to your journey. So when you were 12, you went to work with Cynthia Kenyon, which was kind of like being taken very, very seriously at a very young age. What did it feel like? Like, were you like, of course, this makes sense that this very reputable professor in the space would take a bet on me, the 12-year-old, or?
No, it felt like my life was starting. Like I was just like, no, it was literally like, I've worshipped, like, this is the best person I can imagine working with. Like, I'm in this lab that is like the best hub I can imagine working with in the world. Like, my life starts now. Like, or, not, I had a great life up until then, but just, yeah, it really felt like very life-changing.
Do you remember what you emailed her? Like, what do you think made her take a bet on you? What was the cold pitch?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I was just very serious. Or like, I think I was like completely serious in emailing her that I like there was no external motivation of like, oh, I want to like go there for a grade or like for extra credit, or you just, literally like, I worship you, or like, what you might take away from the email is like, I worship the ground that you work on, and like, it would give me no greater joy than to come work in your lab. Like, this, is the best thing I can imagine happening. But I don't know.
How come your parents were so easy to, uplift their entire life from New Zealand and move to the US? Was the solo thing why they did that the fact that you started working in the lab?
No, I think they've been meaning to move back at some point anyway. Like, I was born in Palo Alto, so coming back here wasn't the biggest jump. But I mean, yeah, definitely like them being down to move at the time was extremely important, and I'm very grateful.
What was their way of parenting? So they homeschooled you. What was the decision behind that?
I'm not really sure. I think my dad was just like,
This seems
this
better.
should be better.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm really, really grateful for it. I think it was very formative for sure.
Do you have siblings?
Yeah, I have a younger brother.
And he was homeschooled too.
He was homeschooled, but he decided to go to school later.
Oh, why is that?
Which is I think he just preferred it.
He felt like it. So it's not like you weren't given a choice to
Yeah.
go to school. Okay, got it.
We could both just pick which one we wanted.
That's awesome. So you come to the US, you're 12, you start working in the lab. Tell me what you remember from that period.
I remember. I think I just remember every day feeling like the best day of my life. Like, literally, it's like I walk into this university and it's like, this is the best day of my life. And then the next day, it's like, it is also
That's amazing.
still the best day of my life. Yeah, it was just like a high, like just a total high. And, Cynthia was incredible. Like, she would meet with me one-on-one, like as though I were like an actual student in her lab, She helped me find like graduate courses and university courses that I could go take to like actually learn. And she took me like it actually was funny in retrospect. It turned out that she had more than one like young student in her lab that she really helped a lot. But I think she just like was incredible and that she took it very seriously. Like she didn't treat me like I was a kid.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just a really amazing mentor in that sense.
Yeah, it seems like from everything that I've heard from people about parenting, treating your child or maybe your students or any sort of, kid-like creature as an adult, as their equal really makes a huge difference. It's amazing that she did that. So are you still in that period of your life where every day is the best day? Or would you say that?
Oh, no. Absolutely.
Tell me more.
I don't know. I mean, I think that like I've had months, where it's like you're traveling and you get to think about science all the time. And, I'm so lucky. Like, I think the best part of my day is often like going to the lab and talking to my co-founder Hunter or like getting to hang out with the team who are just like all amazing, incredible scientists. And like, if you love science and being around a bunch of great scientists and engineers is such a privilege. But no, like, I mean, I think often the company is just like you get like just a series of like insane things that you would not have predicted that come up. And then your day, which was supposed to be like thinking about some beautiful science thing or like figuring out some, perfect story is just like, all right, well, how do we figure this out? So yeah, not right now, but hopefully in the future,
Have there been any chapters in the company where it really felt super joyous every day?
Yeah, I mean, even not so long ago, I think like when the company comes together to try and hit a milestone and it's like getting to be in the lab, even just to like watch or observe some part and see the team just execute like, it feels like you're in a high stakes, or it's hard to describe. It's just like everyone is so on and everyone is so present and like, the team will solve like 3 or 4 different things that would normally take like a week or something for the average person to figure out in like a night, like overnight trying to like get experiment to work. And I just have so much respect. It's very compelling and very cool to be able to work with a team where when we pull together to really try and make something happen, like they can bring that level of serious focus.
Hey, thank you so much for watching the show. If you're enjoying it, please share it with a friend and subscribe to the show. This is exactly what helps me grow it. And I'm so grateful to be able to do this. Let's get back to the episode. Tell me about the moments when you decided to leave VC, to leave longevity funds to solve this specific problem.
Yeah, it's actually funny. I was at a conference and I was supposed to give a talk about something else. But like the weeks leading up to it, I just gotten really obsessed with this problem of cryo, and it felt like so compelling and so important. And I remember I just like literally tweaked and I just like gave a talk about cryo, even though I was supposed to give a talk about something else. And I had some friends in the audience and I was talking to them afterward and I was like, I think that this is very, like, I was just like, should I do this? And they were like, yeah, like, there's like that level of like, it's just like when you get obsessed with something, you just can't stop thinking about it. And it just like feels very compelling.
So in some way it was almost like an on the whim, a pool decision where you got obsessed with the topic, you went to do the conference talk and the pool was so huge that you were like, I'm just gonna pivot and commit my life chapter to this problem.
Yeah, like I basically knew as soon like about I think it may have been a month before that I had like, or I don't remember exactly how much earlier, but like I had like realized like, oh, this is a very important problem, and that was enough to like I want a company to be started in this space but then, yeah, just like that I couldn't find a way to disprove that it was like as important as I thought it was.
Yeah.
And that like, and to work on specifically, not just the problem's important, but also that it's counterfactually important for, you to work on it. And that like the best scientists that I knew were like, yeah, this actually is like this checks out. But yeah.
In some of your writing and in the way you talk, oftentimes things like it feels or feeling in my body or intuition, those words come up very, very frequently. How do you use your intuition in your day-to-day life, and what is intuition?
Intuition, I, mm, I don't know. I think like, I've learned that like you have to kind of be careful, like, like you can have intuition, but then also it's like sometimes for a year you just need to kind of like show up to work and like do whatever needs. It's kind of like, let's just get to the next thing. So I would say intuition is sufficient for everything, but I think for me there's this feeling of like just like a really good feeling around certain things, and they kind of make me want to like get close to them. And I found that like I don't know, yeah, just kind of following that is helpful, I think.
How would you describe that good feeling? Like, where do you feel it?
It's like the best feeling you've ever felt. Like, imagine like the best ice cream.
I love how you picked ice cream. I do love ice cream.
I know this about you. Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
So the very best ice cream, and like and like the feeling of overwhelmingly being loved by just the universe, not even a specific, but just like just everything being as good as it could possibly be. Like that kind of.
That sounds amazing. So I find the topic of intuition very interesting because I think everyone should try to use their intuition more, but then it takes some time to figure out what is my intuition? Is whatever I think intuition actually a different feeling? So discerning that is really important because otherwise you might be pulled in a completely wrong direction. And especially here, in the Valley, we're always in our head. We're always very cerebral. It's very easy to get disconnected from our intuition. And I find the times when I listen to that feeling that you've described was the time when I made like the right or the best decision. Have you always listened to your intuition, or did you have to go through, I don't know, any sort of intuition discovery in your own life, given that you've always been in science and kind of more cerebral subjects?
Yeah, I actually find that, I think for me, San Francisco is often a big, I feel bad saying it's a big intuition killer. Like, I moved here when I was very young, and I think that you just really internalize a lot of the city has such strong attractor points, such strong values that I feel like you can learn a lot, but also I feel like it just, especially for me, at least when I was younger, like just kind of like crushed. And I remember at one point I actually had almost a breakdown when I was in my early 20s or mid 20s, I think. I was just crying. I was so sad all the time. And like a friend helped me realize that like I just had this part of me that was really curious and like wanted to explore and wanted to like, and just like it wasn't able to express itself. So yeah, I think now, I don't know, like I just try to be more mindful of giving that space.
And so what does that, given that space, look like for you?
Just going to a random coffee shop and reading and writing. I think being allowed to be obsessed with things that like seem weird or don't make sense. This isn't so weird, but like I love math a lot, or like right now I'm interested in like a specific kind of law theory, and being like I'm allowed to treat that as an important thing in my life. I don't know. I think also just being like I will die literally if I can't express certain facets of my curiosity, and taking that like as seriously as the phrase would imply is like a good. I found that helpful.
Have there been specific times when you've leaned into this, maybe at the time, weird curiosity or weird obsession, and then it led you to something incredible, a discovery, or something that was very important for your life later on?
Yeah, I mean, I think actually Until kind of was downstream, at least my contribution to Until was downstream of, I was actually not thinking about work. I was just taking like some time to think about just math. Like I literally moved to like, I don't know, the East Coast for, a couple weeks or whatever to like just do math. And
that's awesome. Like solving equations, or
yeah, I just had this like
proving equations.
I had this like math tutor that I thought was amazing, and he had some like specific cards that I wanted to study like the shapes.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I was just like in this mode of just like utter pure kind of like connection with the ideas, and so I wasn't thinking about work. And then I remember just like the idea like image like came out of
Wow.
like, it's like the classic like
Yeah, like the download, you're doing something different and then you have an idea.
yeah.
And then you might either catch the idea or the idea will go fly in the universe and someone else will catch it.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, I remember in one of the group conversations that you and I had at some point, you were speaking of the idea of beauty and spirituality, and currently you're obsessed with just like kind of diving into the beauty of molecules and animation, and the way you're perceiving things is kind of more transcendent. Can you speak to that shift more?
Hmm. Yeah, I think that it's basically just speaking to the fact that, like, I think for me, like, the feeling that I have around science, um, feels very similar in affect to kind of how people react to, like, very holy things. Like, I remember I went to visit or, like, some, like, temple or sacred site when I was, younger, and I saw people, like, weeping and having, like,
Yeah.
just full-on, like, experiences, and I was just kinda, like, not, like, for me personally, that didn't trigger that response, but in the presence of certain scientific stimuli, I do get that feeling. And I think like, I just so wish that the way that scientific stimuli were presented kind of made that a natural place for people to go. I don't know. Yeah, that would be good.
Can you explain that a little more? What do you mean by the scientific stimuli pulling people? Or, can you actually just repeat the last part that you said?
Scientific stimuli pulling people.
Like you wish that people were more enamored by science or more in awe of science?
Yeah, like I think that like in biology, for example, like when I like in the times when I'm allowed or enabled or can like see molecules and really think about the fact that like there's 10 to the 27 atoms in you, and they're all like, and there's like trillions of cells, and in each cell is, like that many molecules, and they're working in clockwork synchrony to like allow you to nod right now. Like it literally like, it's like I don't know how to feel more loved by the universe than like really kind of internalizing that point of view. But I don't think that like I don't think that in an academic setting, it's always okay to like have a full-on breakdown out of like, just the beauty of the thing from a stimuli. Or like, I think maybe some physics departments like that kind of thing is, but you're kind of supposed to like not like, there's just a lot of weird culture around when you can or can't express this kind of overwhelming love for the world coming through science. And it would be cool for that to just be a little bit more widespread, I think.
How did you become okay with you feeling that way and expressing it so openly? Because if there is a lot of taboo around, expressing your feelings or transcendence when you're in touch with some sort of scientific beauty, then you might feel like, oh my God, something's wrong with me, or I shouldn't be talking about it, or I should be suppressing all these feelings that I feel. What helped you get more comfortable with that?
Well, I think that's a little was just like, at some point I was just like, if I like, this is the thing that I hear about the most in the world, and I like, there's nothing that I care about more. So there's no reason that I wouldn't like, I don't know. Yeah, it's just no reason I wouldn't. But also I think like it feels very correct. Like, it's hard to say because like plausibly could also get this feeling just like from anything, but like often it's like, okay, what does following this feeling want me to do? It's like it wants me to go study math. Like that doesn't feel like, so off base that I'm throwing my life away. Sort of like,
That's true.
not the worst thing ever. And typically it's like, oh, I want to find the most beautiful part of math that I can imagine, and I want to really try to understand the concepts deeply and to earn the or sort of it's not looking for surface level. It's not going towards surface level understanding. So it at least doesn't feel like totally like a terrible thing.
Yeah. What is beauty to you?
Beauty? I don't know. Yeah.
Do you have any sort of hunch on what it might be? Is that going back to feelings? Is that the feelings that you've described that is beauty?
I think beauty. I don't know. I'm confused about. I think that beauty might have to do with like what I know, and then the jump between what I know to something else. Like it could be that something that I view as beautiful now would not be as beautiful to me in the future. I'm not sure.
Have there been things like that you felt were beautiful in the past, and now you're like, meh, not that beautiful anymore?
I don't think so. Not off the top of my head.
So that's been consistent.
Yeah, but I also haven't learned that much in the past.
Okay, fair. Okay, let's go back to Until. So you had this idea of cryo coming from that obsession with math, then topic, then conference, then checking in with fellow scientists.
Yep.
What happens then? Is it that you meet Hunter? Is it you start working on some sort of prototype of an experiment on your own?
Yeah, so I started working on some stuff, but I'd say like the big like consolidation of the company was meeting Hunter and yeah, like it's funny because my favorite thing in the world is like thinking about biology and other parts of science from first principles. You know, it's like very physics brain. Like if you can find simple laws and then build up from them, just so satisfying to be able to like think of problems that way. And one of the things I love about cryo is I think it is a field that has a lot of material for that. Like it a lot of questions in biology feel very speculative. Like, okay, like we have this hypothesis about, you know, a disease model, and we really have no idea. And I'd say like even just like most drugs that are developed, you know, the level of certainty you can really have about their main mechanism of action is a lot less than you might want. But cryo was just very compelling. And Hunter was somebody who he's just like he has this mix of like he can think through the problem from first principles, but he also has this like deep-seated sense of like, you know, care for people and but also like a sense of like, you know, urgency of wanting to sort of get a group to move forward in a certain way. So yeah, just meeting him I was very lucky. Yeah.
One thing related to beauty and the emotions that you're describing related to, you know, molecules and biology, I thought that the Until's website was so emotionally beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Because there is, for anyone listening, there's two people lying in a park.
Yeah.
And then as you scroll, they turn into molecules. And I thought it was very you.
That's actually, it's a brainchild of a colleague that I'm very lucky to work with. Yeah,
that's incredible.
It was kind of her
it was her idea.
Yeah.
It was her vision. So, okay, but was the vision inspired by how you were feeling about the problem too, or it was completely independent?
I think the vision, well, artistically, creatively, she really masterminded the whole thing.
That's incredible.
I think that the thing that we wanted to convey was like just a lot of the cryo art is very cold. It's very blue. It's kind of like cold and dead are two things that just kind of like the worst possible associations with this field. And we just felt like we really cared about how people felt about the technology. Like we cared about how people culturally related to it, and we wanted to try to make something that just felt good and how it felt.
Yeah.
And so,
well, I think you were successful at that because you really have that warm and fuzzy feeling when you go on the website.
Yeah.
What has been
credit to my colleagues, right?
Yes. What has been a recent milestone in the company or technology that you can share, of course?
So milestone, we recently shared that we developed what we call the big magnet, basically a way to very quickly, an iteration of technology to very quickly rewarm cryopreserved organs. Yeah.
And how quickly can you rewarm an organ?
In about a minute.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, so for someone listening who has no idea how cryo or Until works, in very simple terms, how would you explain what you do?
Yeah, so there's this cool mental model that you can use, which is basically you want to prevent ice formation. That's probably required to solve this problem in the long term. And there's a danger zone for ice formation between around 0 degrees Celsius and about minus 130 degrees Celsius. Below that, actually, there's just not enough kind of just like motion essentially stops of the molecules. And so you should kind of get through this danger zone as quickly as possible because ice forms and extends, ice nuclei form and extend stochastically in that range.
And then it breaks the tissue.
Exactly. And so what you want to do is you can both perfuse into the tissue with like chemicals that, you know, prevent ice nucleation or slow the rate of extension. And then also at the same time, you can just cool and rewarm very quickly. So for example, when you think about cryopreserving, like, you know, embryos, which, you know, happens all the time. So there are embryos that have been cryopreserved for 30 plus years and then rewarmed and give rise to healthy kids. That's done just because they're so small, their surface area to volume ratio is so favorable to heat diffusion that you can just do it almost instantaneously, you know. But with a larger, let's say like, you know, up to the size of your kidney or a whole human, it like the process of getting heat in and out is just a core part of the problem to solve.
So for a day-to-day person, what would change in their life once the technology is there?
So for transplant patients, the biggest thing is that right now, if you're a transplant patient on the waiting list, you have to live within a 2-hour radius of a transplant center. It's actually very unequal in the sense of which transplant center you can afford to live close to might determine the quality of the organ that you receive, or how quickly you're able to receive one. So like just economically, that's a factor for some patients. And then also you just literally are uncertain when the surgery is going to be scheduled for months, maybe up to over a year. So you can't go on vacation. You can't you literally have to have a pager on you at all times.
Wow.
If you miss the call, for the organ at any point in those 2 months, which might come at 2 a.m. in the middle of some night, then you go back on the waiting list, right? So it's just kind of this really crazy sort of period of uncertainty. And then for surgeons, on the other hand, it's often staying up 48 to 36 hours, just going on retrieval after retrieval, and then having to come back and do the surgery exactly when you get back to the organ. There's just no, it's like imagine running any logistics process with no ability to put pause on the process at any time after the organ leaves the donor. So,
so walk me through, or rather, let me walk you through what happens if cryo is possible. So my understanding is if you're a such patient, then one, it's super expensive to get a transplant. Two, the doctor has to fly somewhere with the organ kind of immediately after the organ was taken out of the donor to transplant it. Otherwise, the organ will die. And then with cryo, you would be able to cryopreserve the organ right there and then. It can stay preserved for as long as you need it to be preserved. It will be much cheaper to transport it. And then you have the warming agent to revive it.
Yeah, it's you don't have to charter a private jet at the last minute with a surgeon on board to go pick up an organ, which is just better for everyone.
Yeah, makes sense.
And, another thing, we recently heard the story about an organ where, but anyhow, so it's even when you have the time window, there's still things where let's say someone's traveling and they can't make it back in time to do the surgery, and so minor logistical things become this huge problem when you only have a couple hours of sort of buffer. Yeah,
that makes sense. And how many people work at Until now?
Approaching 50.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Is it the majority are scientists?
Yeah. Scientists and engineers.
Are you happy with the decision headquartering the company in San Francisco? Is that a good magnet for talent?
There's pros and cons.
Pros and cons. Are you mostly happy?
Yeah, mostly happy, I think, yeah.
Tell me more about your guys' hiring philosophy. How do you attract talent? How do you screen talent?
I think one thing that's really consistent is trying to find people who can think really coherently about the problem. There's so many unknowns, especially when you get to the whole body part of the problem. You need to work with people who are just really able to think from first principles and not very stuck in specific models. Yeah.
How do you test for that?
Hunter does a technical interview.
Okay, got it.
Hunter and with the team, yeah.
So you spent quite a few years as a VC in the space with the Longevity Fund. How has that career chapter impacted how you build as a founder?
I think it makes you a lot more impatient. There's so many different ways for things to go wrong, and then you see how simple some of the I think the people who are the best entrepreneurs I've ever met are just very, they just always take it back to simplicity, or just kind of I think you just kind of learn how dangerous it is to become confused or for things to get too complicated, and all of a sudden it's there's a reason for not to do everything, and it's but I think the best entrepreneurs they're so focused on just getting to the next milestone as well as quickly as possible, and they're able to think so clearly, and so it just kind of gives you a standard to hold yourself to, I think.
Since at the beginning of the conversation, we spent a lot of time talking about how you don't have answers to a lot of questions and you feel very confused. How do you pair up that with the need to be very crystal clear about the problems that you're working on as a founder?
I think you're going to have buckets where you're allowed to be confused, and then you have buckets where you need to make a decision today. So, we're allowed to be confused as philosophically, what could a very long-term sort of stream of conscious experience look like? What kind of thing could evolve? And I don't think that we have to make a call on that anytime soon, because I don't think that's happening the next year or so, for the company. But on the other hand, what is valuable to somebody who will buy it and use it, and it will literally change your life in a way that we feel deeply good about? That's kind of a very straightforward question that you can't bullshit in a startup context.
For founders listening, how do you keep your decision-making process, your thinking simple and concrete. Because it is very easy to, get lost and confused and think of 5,000 different solutions to a problem and take too much time to do something. So I don't know if you ever find yourself being pulled to do that, but how do you hold yourself accountable to the principle of clarity?
I think being okay saying no to things, like you have to be able to just like stare at a wall for an hour and just be like, I don't think this is the most important. I don't think this is the most important thing. That's the most important thing. Okay, let's go do that. Like, but just kind of being like, okay, not important. Like letting yourself just hold space to like until you find the one thing that is important to do, I think.
It sounds like a part of that is also honesty with yourself and knowing what problems you're facing.
Yeah, I think the weird thing is like I think everyone actually, or like I don't know if you feel this way, but I think for me, like it usually turns out that I actually know what is the most important thing.
Yeah, you always know.
Confused. And usually there's just kind of a lot of other things that you could be doing.
Yeah.
That might be more
more interesting or fun or important at the time.
Yeah, exactly. But like you really know like what the most important thing to do is.
Do you have any practices to clear your mind to tap into that knowingness of what you need to be doing? I don't know, maybe you meditate, maybe you go on a walk, maybe it is literally staring at a wall.
Yeah, a lot of I feel like if you live in SF you just get deluged with this, but just a lot of like body like just a kind of just self-regulation and a lot of, thousands of hours of like work, but yeah, just a lot of like, where am I? What's the emotion? How is it turning from my body? Like just doing that like so many times.
Tell me more about that. Like, what does the practice actually look like? How do you identify emotion in your body? Did you go through certain, I don't know, trainings or therapy or something else to be able to do that?
Yeah, so much mentorship. Like I think the thing that like at some point I learned was like there was a period of my life where I just couldn't spend enough resources like trying to acquire like more skill here. And I think it's different. Some people don't want to do that. Some people do. It's just of time or just energy.
Desire, yeah.
I think that I don't know. I mean, I feel like you can go on TikTok and find like more. It's like just like
But what did you do?
For
like,
me,
was there a mentor, person, a therapist, a program?
I think probably one thing that's helpful is just being like, if you're very overregulated or you're just like you look and you're like, I'm clearly not thinking well. Like I'm like one thing that's helpful for me for a while was just to be like, my one job is to like be able to get to a point where I can think clearly. Like that's the only job
that is most important for a founder.
Yeah, because like if you know what to do, you can at least like get it done, even if you can't immediately do it because you're like you can make sure that it happens usually. But if you don't know what to do, like that feels the most and usually if you're in a good mindset, you do know, but just like if you're not there, then being very attuned to that and being like, okay, try this. Okay, and then now I know, okay, like do that thing,
You're saying that some people are able to kind of figure things out very, very quickly, and for some people you need a little more support or
the depth
guidance.
of my issues, no. It's like there's a lot of stuff to figure out. So yeah, a lot of help.
What are the different coaches that you work with? Like, do they have different methodology? Are they focused on different things? How do you find them?
I'd say one is more like exec coach, just focused on things in that category. One is more like body focused, like what's going on in the body.
Like body work. I don't know. There is embodied practices through dance. There is what is it called? Somatic therapy. There is massages. There is talk therapy that helps you figure out your emotions.
Yeah, I don't actually know what you would call it. Probably just like being aware of your body.
That's cool.
But I mean, she probably called something more interesting than that. I don't know.
And then anyone else?
Off and on as needed. Yeah.
Got it. That's really cool. So you really tapped into the understanding yourself and trying to figure out how to make clear decision and what are the different puzzle pieces to make that happen. Coming back to the work at Until, do you have any arguments against the work that you're doing?
The best argument against is something like, well, it depends for different things. Like, for the whole body part, I think it's just like, how much certainty could you give someone who is doing this procedure about when they could come out of cryo? Because I think for a lot of people, like, your family and friends are the most important part of your life. If you were to come back in 20 years and they're very different, like that might be such a big loss for you that it's actually not worth being under that amount of time, even if you would die otherwise, you know, like,
Yeah.
so,
But then do you really feel like it's in your power to answer that question?
you could try to figure out how to give people more predictive power over, like, let's say,
over
like,
what's
I
going to
have
happen.
no idea if there was going to come out in the next week versus like, you know, in pancreatic cancer, like a therapy just came out that was transformative for some patients.
Yeah.
How much could you predict that in advance? You know, how much could you say for a specific person? You know, I'd guess that this, you know, advance, maybe like we think that it would be helpful, but it'd be optimal to have another year of data, but then in a year you come back out. It's like,
Oh, so it's
that
like
would
making
be-
the call for when.
yeah, exactly. Kind of like putting some bounds.
Anything else as far as against arguments go?
I think there are unknowns of whether or not you can reversibly cryopreserve a brain. Like, the best arguments for would be that you can take patients down to a state of like deep hypothermia during certain types of cardiac surgery and have them flatline basically and then recover function. And so you can do like non-physiological temperature related changes to the brain that you recover from, but you know, you don't know until you know. So
Yeah.
I think like showing that you can wake a rat up from like vitrification temperatures will be a big deal if and when we can do that.
What are you obsessed with right now?
Obsessed with finally understanding Galois theory.
Oh, cool.
Be so great. I think I might have told you about that. It's like basically showing that you can't create a general equation that solves polynomials of fifth power or higher.
Oh, yeah.
And linking that to like some kind of like symmetry related concept in group theory, which I don't understand.
And that is your own understanding is close to being complete, or has there been any breakthrough in the space?
Oh, I don't know if there's been a breakthrough. Yeah, just personally.
Just personally
understanding the most simple theorem.
Yeah. How did you pick that theorem specifically to understand right now?
I had a mentor for a while who just said this was one of those beautiful kind of links in math, and I think that doesn't seem wrong from the little that I understand so far. Like it's just very cool that like there's a question in algebra and like, polynomials that where the answer is so deeply linked to just the idea of symmetry, like comes out of symmetry that that feels very compelling.
That sounds amazing. This is the part of life that I unfortunately am missing. I've never seen math as beautiful. You know, I've always seen it as like numbers and understanding numbers and trying to piece together how to solve equations and how to pass exams on various exams on calculus. But I was talking to Grant Sanderson and he was like, oh yeah, you know, when you come to a certain understanding of like why a certain equation works or why things click, that there is so much beauty in that. And then it's really beautiful how randomly in nature like a pie would appear. And I was like, damn, maybe at some point I will also reach this feeling, but it's really interesting to hear you guys talk about how you find math so fascinating and beautiful. Yeah, it sounds like a really cool obsession. You mentioned on, I believe, your website that your values are, let me see what I have. I have them written down. Transcendence, service, and care. Is that still true?
I'm not sure, actually.
Time to revisit.
Yeah, I think that was like a year ago. Yeah, they probably updated.
Do you update your values every single year?
Sometimes, I'll just post like a random new page on my website, but like no one except for I guess
except the researchers for an interview.
Yeah, exactly. No, just so honestly, just remember, because I don't know where else to put them.
Okay. What would you say your values are right now?
Transcendence definitely still up there. That might just be the only one now.
Okay, well, one value
went to 0.
Transcend death.
I don't know if I think that death of what, right? Like death
That's
of you,
true.
and you're not the same person that you were when you were 12.
Yeah. Or death of your identity at a given point of time, or death of your memories, who knows?
Yeah, but okay, let's say that, would you get in a teleporter?
Give me more specifics about this experiment. Teleporter to go where? Why?
So
on which time horizon?
It's a Derek Perfect teleporter experiment. So basically, there's a teleporter, you get into it, and you really want to go to Mars. Let's say there's something you really want to do, like go to Mars, and this teleporter, if you walk in, will get you to Mars, except the way that it does that is creates a perfect clone of you on Mars. And then right after that clone is created, it will instantaneously destroy and painlessly destroy the version of you that's left on Earth. Do you view this as like totally a no-brainer, get in the teleporter, like no question, or would you pause a bit?
Yeah, I think I'll pause. It's a bit more nuanced than that. It depends on how attached I am to my identity on Earth. What does that mean? Is a copy still me? It reminds me of that show Pantheon, which I'm sure you probably watched.
Yeah, yeah.
And there are all these questions around, okay, well, if we're uploaded to the cloud, is it still you? Is your identity preserved? What about your relationships?
Yeah.
I mean, I've never thought about those questions up until I watched the show, and I didn't really know how I would feel. Would I get them uploaded right away? Depends on whether my friends and community are also doing it, but I'm probably not going to be in the pioneer batch.
Yeah.
How about you?
I think that I am not like. I think that there's philosophically I might, but then I think it's good to not get in the teleporter for 100 years. You should take some time between your philosophical decisions that you made in your 20s or 30s.
Yeah.
And then kind of possibly life or death decisions.
So is it better, what's an age at which it's okay to make a decision to teleport yourself and make a copy? Is it by 50 you've reached all the wisdom and you're primed to make that decision? Okay, so when you say why did you mention this specific experiment when we talk about transcendence?
Oh, just you said transcend death. It's transcend death of what? On some level,
yeah.
You've, the version of you that was here has died or passed. So then it's continuity of consciousness. And it's this is the philosophical.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting question that we can glibly say, or not glibly, but we can say, oh, transcend death. But then there's a real question well, what does that mean?
Yeah. How does your value of transcendence show up in your everyday life?
And then I just get really distracted by stuff sometimes.
By transcending things.
Walk around the math book. Yeah. Not often, but sometimes I'll just get really caught by something.
And my last question, what are you excited about in the future?
So I'm excited for Until stuff. I mean, it's just cool to see the team that we have and to watch them work. And so I'm really excited about that and getting to recenter. I don't know. I'd like to understand the fundamental theorem in Kelvin theory. I'd like to understand it, and I don't yet. So that would be cool. Yeah.
Awesome, Laura. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for the interview.
Hey, thank you so much for watching the show. If you're enjoying it, please share it with a friend and subscribe to the show. This is exactly what helps me grow it, and I can bring more exciting guests on. Thank you so much.